This video is going to be a review of classes. So you should have seen classes before you're taking this course, but just in case you haven't, or just in case you're a little bit rusty about it, we'll go ahead and go over them a bit. So a class is a collection of components, okay? And we call these components members of the class, okay? So one of the ways that we can specify what we want our class to be is through a UML diagram. Okay, so I'm going to start by going through what those look like. So we can certainly use those to a shorthand, basically, to let other programmers know, or to let me know, or let me tell you what should be in a class. I think it's popped up here. Okay. So the UML class diagrams are going to look like this. Okay. So you start by making a big rectangle, okay? At the top, you're going to have the name of the class. This is a person class. You would have person up there, okay? Then it's divided into two sections, okay? The top section is going to be for the member data, okay? That's the things that the class remembers about. So in this case, it could be, let's say, a name, say it could be an age, okay? So we'll have to specify some more information, but we'll just get things going there, okay? Then down here, we're going to have the member functions, okay? So in this collection of data, this is what every object of that class knows, okay? And this is what it can do, okay? So that's the basic idea. So down here, we're going to have always, we have a constructor. Every function has at least, every class has at least one constructor, okay? The default constructor just sets null values, or you can have it set whatever you want, okay? We can have other functions down here. We'll talk about the functions that we're going to need in a minute. So we'll just go ahead and deal with it. In addition to the constructor, which you can overload, you typically are going to have accessors and mutators. So an accessor would be like a get, a name, okay, and then we could have a set age as a mutator, okay. So let's specify these out a little bit more, okay. So two options here. There are actually three options. We'll talk about the other later in the class. Plus means it's public, which means we can directly access whatever we're referring to, whether it's a member data or a function from outside of the class. Private means it's protected to only other functions of the class, okay? So the typical way we're going to do this is to make our member data private, okay? We'll talk more about this as we go along, but this is called information hiding. We don't want someone to be able to change directly the name or the age of any of our instances of this class, okay? We also need to put in what kind of variable this is, okay? So name will be a string, age will be an int, okay? We then have to have the public functions for the constructor, okay? And we want the get to be public, and we want the set to be public, okay? So the get name typically is not going to take any variables, okay? But it's going to return whatever type that variable is, okay? So name is a string, so this is going to return a string, okay? If we had a get age, it will return an int. The set age is going to take an int, but it's not going to return anything, okay? So it will be a void, okay? So in this structure, again, not any of this stuff, but in this little rectangle, we can specify, okay? Again, this is a UML class diagram, okay? We can specify, again, at the top, we have private member data. Member data should be private unless there's a really good reason for it not to be private, okay? And then we have our functions, which typically are public, but could be private. It just depends, okay? So let's go now and actually do some coding, okay? I'm gonna work through an example here. Again, this should be an example that is familiar. I should have done these kinds of things before. but if not, then this will be a good time to figure that out. Okay, so I'm going to open up the terminal window. I've got a separate video that talks about how to set up the server. Everything we're going to be doing is going to be on the server. Okay, so let me start. Let me quit talking and get this set up. It's hard to talk and do things at the same time. Okay. So here's my terminal window. Okay, which should be shared to you. So we're now going to go through and we're going to connect into the server. Okay, so again, I'm going to SSH-L, my username. Okay, where the server is ludwig.mcs.uvays.edu. Okay, should be all I need. Enter the password. Okay, takes me in. Okay, so again, Linux is very terse. Doesn't give us, yay, you made it, none of that stuff. Okay, we get the blinking, in my case, green. Yours could be a different color. You get the blinking block, and that's where we can type stuff. We get the $sign, and it does say my username at Ludwig, so I know I'm there. Okay, so we talked before about making directories. There's another video of making directories. Okay, so you can make one for CSC 2180. Okay, I've already done that, so I'm going to do a CD to change into CSC 2180. Okay, once I'm there, I can do an LS. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove. I went ahead and worked through this example once to make sure I could do it, but let's get rid of that. Okay, so here's the hello in the other video that I worked through. Okay, again, LS gives you a list of all the files with very little information. LL is a long list, gives more information about them, the size, the date they were created, that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start this process with emacs goat.cpp. Okay, I've just bought a farm, so make it a lot of farm type references to the programs this time. Okay, so what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try to stress here, I think that's important when you're programming. There's enough to worry about. You want to develop habits or rituals that you do. So you want to do things in the same order. Does it matter to C++? It does not. Does it matter to me grading more than it does for C++? But I'll cut you some slack. But I think it's important that you don't think about things so much, that you just do them. Okay, you do them enough until they're natural. Okay, so we're going to start here with a comment. Okay, you want the full stuff here. You want programmer, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do all that, but you should. Okay. Okay. There'll be a separate video on how to turn in homework. So we're going to do a directory structure, and we're going to do file names, things like that, just so it'll be easy for me to find stuff. Okay. So since we're going to write a test program integrated into this class definition, you can write class definition as header files and have them as separate things and then include them into your test program. And that's fine. But I think for us, it'll make more sense to put things just into one file. Okay. So I'm going to have to include the IO stream, as we always do. I assume you've been doing this all along, using namespace standard. You don't have to do any of this. It's just the way I choose to do it. Okay. Then we're going to start with the class keyword for the class goat. Okay. Starts with a curly brace. Oddly enough to me, it ends with a curly brace semicolon. I find that really weird. So I tend to go ahead and put it in so I won't forget. Okay. So there are two basic sections we're going to create. Okay. And they can be in any order, but for me, I like to put the member data first because I know what I'm dealing with. Okay. And then I put whatever functions I have with the constructor at the end, or constructors typically. Okay. So again, do it this way unless you have a really good reason not to, but whatever you do, be consistent. Okay. So I'm going to start with the private section here. It's private colon. That's a name or a line identifier. We're also going to have a public colon down here. Okay. So in the private is where I can put in my member data. Okay. We could also put some private functions, but we're just going to worry about the member data in this. So for my goat, I'm going to have a string for name. I'm going to have a string for breed. I'm going to have an integer for age. Okay, that's all we're going to have to begin with. Okay. As far as the public goes, I like to go ahead and put in the constructor first. I just said the constructor is going to be last, but I think it's important to get this part working properly before you move on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create. The constructor has no return type. It takes the, its name is the name of the class. Okay, and again, I'm using a capital G for goat since it's a class. Not everyone does that. Okay. So in this one, this is in essence going to be the default constructor. Okay, so we send no parameters to it. We can do different things for this one. We're going to do this one for now. Okay, so I have to set default values for all of our member data. So we're going to default the name to goatee because why not? We're going to set the breed equal to a boar, B-O-E-R. I had to Google breeds of goats because I don't know that yet. Hopefully I'll have goats someday. And we'll just randomly pick an age being 4 as our default age. Okay. So that's our default constructor. We can do more with that later, but that's all we need to get going. Okay. We've set up our member data and we've set up our default constructor. Okay. So we can now go ahead and write our test program, an int main, which will be the first thing to run. Okay. And we're going to have our return 0 when everything is okay. To create a class, just like I would say int x, I'm going to say goat g1. Okay. That will set up all the default information. Now I can't do anything since they're private. Just to show that, if I try to see out g1.name, this is going to give me an error. Okay. We may get other errors. You know, if I type something wrong, then it's going to happen. Okay, so let's try G++ on this. Again, when I'm working on something, I don't do the -o. When I'm done, I'll do a -o for sure to make it executable. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this gives us the area. It gives us the problem we have here. Okay. That on that line, when we go to .name, it's declared private, it tells us pretty usefully in line 10. So I can't access it here. Okay. So and nothing else blew up. So I think we're okay. We can go back. We can take that out just to make sure that we've got nothing else. Again, Control K will delete that line. Control X, Control C, and then yes gets us out. Now when I compile, it should be okay. The a.out is the default name if you don't give it a name. So it doesn't do anything, but it doesn't give an error either. Okay. I probably should actually give it executable since I've asked you to do that. So I'll start doing that from now on. Okay. So now that we have this going, okay, we have our default constructor. We can't get to any of the member data, so it's not very useful. Okay. So we have to add some functions to do that. The first category of function we're going to add, and I would add these comments in as we go. We're going to call accessors. Okay. And these are the get functions. Okay. All this does, it returns the value of the variable in question. Well, why do you need to do that? Well, because you can't get to them otherwise. Okay. And it's not usually the access we're so concerned about most of the time. We're more concerned with being able to change them. Okay. So we can talk about how that works. Okay. So we're going to do here, we can do a get name. Okay. That could be one of them. Okay. This is going to return a string since name is a string, but it takes no parameters. These all have the same format. Okay. All it does is it returns name. Okay. So again, from this line, since I'm within the goat class, see the goat class ends down here. I can put a comment there so I know. Okay. Since I'm within here, I can get to the name variable. Okay. When I was down here in int main, I'm not in the goat class definition, so I couldn't get to it. Okay. So that's all that does. And we can do the others pretty quickly. You normally, although not always, there may be information that you don't want to have as that you can get to. Okay. It's very possible. If you don't want people to be able to get to it, if there's an interest rate or some kind of secret number, then just don't put an accessor. Okay. But normally we're going to put an accessor. So we have another one for get breed. Okay, I'm just going to return breed. Okay, then we have an int function called get age, which is going to return age. Okay. So you want to test every function that you write. Okay, so now we have our goat G1. Let's just see out G1 dot get name. That's a function. Just say that. Okay. And again, Control A goes to the beginning of the line. Control K is our kill, and then we're going to yank twice. So we do a get name, get breed, and get age. Just going to print those out. Okay, for the G1 goat that we've created. Okay, run this, see if it works. If we have any errors, we want to catch them now. Okay, so I'm going to correct this and do the G++ -o goat .exe and then the goat.cpp. Again, that order is important. Okay. Okay, now I can do a /goat.exe. And there we go. We have our goatie, who's a boar, who is age 4. Okay. So that's that. Okay. For other things, we want to look at our member data and think about it. Okay, we want to think about it. Do we want to allow the name to change once we've created it? Okay, there's a fair chance that we don't. Okay, what about the breed? We probably don't want to change that either. But we do probably want to change the age. Okay, so you have to, if you're looking at the UML diagram that I would give you for an assignment, it'll tell you which ones you need. But in general, think about what makes sense. So we're going to do an age. Okay, so the accessors we have here. The next section, which I'm going to do in order, again, so I don't have to remember stuff so much, are called mutators. Mutators because they mutate or change things, okay? So this is going to be called a set. So I'm going to have a set age, okay? Set age is going to be a void function, doesn't return anything, but it takes a parameter, an integer, since age is an integer, we'll call it A, okay? All this has to do is set age equal to A, okay? That's all it has to do. That should work, okay? In fact, we can work here. We've printed this out. I can now come down to here. I can say G1.set age to 12. Okay. And then I can copy this age again. So this should print a 4 the first time, and it should print an 8 or a 12 the second time. Okay. Let's try it. See if that works. If you have other, yeah, it does a 12. If you have other mutators, you put those right there, okay? So we do our private member data, we do our accessors, of which we've got get name, get breed, get age. The mutators, we're just going to put in the set age. We're not going to do the others, okay? And then before the constructors, we're going to put in just either miscellaneous functions or other functions, whatever you want to call it, okay? In this case, let's go ahead and do a print function. It's going to be a void function. I'm going to call it print. It's going to take no parameters, okay? So one of the rules that, since you didn't have me for C++, you didn't hear me say, a function shouldn't print unless all it does is print, okay? So in general, you want to return information back to the calling function and print there. But in this case, this function does nothing but print, okay? So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I didn't talk about age. I'll go back to the mutator in a second. So we're going to see out here. Okay, let's make this a little nicer. Let's put in name. I'm going to put in a \T for a tab, to tab over. I'm going to go ahead on this one and put in a couple of spaces, okay? And then I'm going to put in the name. I'm doing Indo, okay? Then for the next line, nope, we'll do a Control A. Okay, so the next line, I don't want those new line characters, so I'll go ahead and wipe those out for those two. Okay, and go ahead and change that. It's name, breed, and age. Okay. Then we have the name, the breed, and the age. Okay. Again, because I'm defining this inside of the goat class, I can just say name. I don't say get name. If I defined this out outside, like where int main is, then I would have to call that get name program. Okay. I could call get name if I wanted. Wouldn't matter. I just don't need to. Okay. On this last one, I'm going to go ahead and add another new line character just to make it look a little nicer. Okay. So the \t is a tab. The \end is a new line character. Okay. So now let's go back to here. And I can go ahead and get rid of that and just say g1.print. Okay, then I can change that. And then again, instead of this one, I can do g1.print again. Okay. See what this does for us. Compile it. I'm missing something in my int main. Yep, this last one needs a semicolon. I had to make a mistake eventually. Okay, so we have Goaty, who's a boar, age 4, and then we change that age to 12. Prints it out. Nice, easy. Okay. So one thing that I want to be concerned about here, I made a big deal of this. A lot of you had me in Python about sanitizing our data and making sure we're checking things. We're going to have to let a little bit of that go just because there's so much to cover in this class and summer comes quick. But I do want my set age. One of the reasons we make these private is we can have some control over it. Okay. So you don't want to ask the user how old's the goat and you say -10. That makes no sense. Also, I looked it up. Goats typically live to 18. So if you say 30 for a goat, that's too much. Okay. So we want to make sure that there's some way to keep those values from being entered. Okay. To keep our data as secure as possible. Okay. Or as accurate. Okay. So I'm going to say here, if age is less than or equal, no, less than. 0 is okay. A goat can be 0. A newborn is 0. Okay, so if it's less than 0, or the age is greater than 20, we'll say 20 is okay for a really old goat. Okay. Now with the ors, we've got to make sure we're not making something impossible. So if the age is less than 0, we're going to reject it. Oh, no, actually, we're not rejecting. It's going to be easier to do it the other way around. We could do it this way. So if it's greater than or equal, put an and here. This one. So if the age is greater than or equal to 0, but the age is less than or equal to 20, okay, then we're good. Okay, then we're going to set the age equal to that A we're setting in. But it's not age that I want. It's A's in question, not age. Okay. Else, this set is already has a value. Okay, so we just won't change it. So we'll do an error message. It must be between 0 and 20. Okay, and do nothing else. We're not going to change anything. Okay, we can. It's not a bad idea to use this convention. There's an error there. Okay, so I kind of like that. Okay, and then we're going to close that off. Okay, so now we're going to come in. We're sending it an age. If the age is between 0 and 20, we're going to set it. If not, we're going to give an error and not change anything. Okay. So we can try this down here. Here's our default constructor. Okay, we're setting it here. So we're doing a set age of 12. Okay. So that should work with that. Yeah, I changed it. That should still be okay. Okay, so let's do that. Then let's try a g1.setAge, say 30. Okay, that should give us the error message. Okay, so let's try it and see. You want to check all the possibilities. Yeah, so first time we have Goaty, who's a boar with age 4. We have Goaty again, but we've now changed the age to 12. Then when we tried to change it to 30, it gave us an error. Okay, so this all seems to be okay. This is all working okay. Okay, so I think the last thing we have to do here. So again, to reiterate, we start our class goat. We have our private member data. We have a string for a name, string for a breed, int for an age. Okay, we then have our accessors first. Okay, which we have a get name, get breed, and get age, just to return those values. We have just one mutator. We're going to do a set age. Okay, we have the miscellaneous function is going to be the print function. Okay, and then I'll go ahead to make it even here. Nope, don't want to search. Even here, we're going to say constructors and destructors. Destructors are going to be important for us. Remember, a destructor has the same name as the class, but it has a tilde in front of it, and it fires when the class goes out of, when an object of that class goes out of scope. Okay, which we'll talk about more later. Okay, so there's our default constructor. So the problem we have with our cute little goat class here is that we can't create any goat that's not named Goaty. Okay, we have no option to change anything else. Okay, so we want to do that. We don't want to change, we don't want to add a mutator because we don't want it to change once it's created, but we do want to create another constructor. Okay, so again, this is going to be the goat, same name, but this is going to have the following. Okay, it's going to have a string N for name, a string B for breed, and an int A for age. Okay. And then inside of this, the first two, we're not going to worry too much about. We can just say name is equal to N, and we're going to have breed is equal to B. Again, we have to worry about what happens on the age. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and you know, you could probably just call the set age from that, but I want to do something a little bit different. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and again, Control K. Remember, we kill and yank, we don't cut and paste. I'm going to kill all that. Control Y puts it back. I'm going to come down to my new constructor here on the age, put that in. The spacing's weird, so if you just go anywhere in the line, hit the tab key, it'll space everything back again for you. Okay. So if this is true, if it's greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 20, we're going to set the age, that's fine. Else, instead of the error, or we're going to give the error, that's fine. But I'm going to also print out, because we can't create one that doesn't have a value. I'm doing using default of 4. Okay, just say using a default of 4. Okay. Okay, so we've got that, and then I can just set age equal to 4. Okay, and that should do it. Okay, but now we have to test it, right? We have to test everything we do. So down here, we're going to go ahead and create a G goat G2. But this one, we're going to name it Barney, because why not? We're going to make it the breed Sonnen, I guess you would say that. I don't know. It's all foreign to me. Age of 7. Okay. And then, and again, the spacing. So I know I forgot my semicolon there. And then I can say a G2 dot print, and that should give us the new information. Okay. And this should finish this up. So let's take a look at this. Compile it one more time. Again, I'm using the up key. Up arrow takes me to my command history, so I have to type it all again. I do that. Oh, didn't like something. Again, I've left off in that same place I did before. I left off a semicolon. Yep, on that print. Okay. Try it again. Still doesn't like something. The end of input, expected one on line 90. Let's take a look, see what else I'm doing here. Control V will go down more lines at a time if you need to. When it gets to here, it thinks it needs one more, which is probably not really where it's at. It's probably, yeah, right here. In this class, I'm not ending. And if you watch, it'll say it matches the goat string. Okay, so that matches this up here. Okay. Control X, Control C, Y for that. Compile it again. Now we're working. And then I can do the ./goat. And there we go. So we have Goaty, who's a boar, that's 4. We change the age to 12. We try to change it to 30, which doesn't work. Then we have Barney, the Sanine or Sanine goat, who's age 7. Okay. So that's the basics of a class. These are things that you should be familiar with. Okay. There'll be another video next that will talk about inheritance and object-oriented stuff in general and how we're going to work with that. But for right now, this should get us up to the basics. Okay. So after you've watched this, there'll be homework, all that, but definitely let me know if there are questions.